to illustrate that you can have multiple colors in any one effect. And we've got 3 different colors for this particular effect. We've got pale yellow, which is virtually white. We've got yellow, which is, you can imagine, is pretty much yellowy. We'll just quickly show you this one. As I said, it's pretty much white. It goes off into a slight amount of oranginess there just to make it a bit more interesting. And then we have orange, which has an orange gradient. And each of those is using this sparkling effect as well, just to give it a bit of, well, sparkle. So that's it for the materials. Each of those is used in a material dynamic operator in whichever event they're actually needed in. So let's close that down now, and we'll just scroll back to the beginning and have a quick look at, if I just do a perspective view and have a quick look at what we've got here going on in the scene. You can see here's our emitter, so our particles have been fired out from here. We've got a drag, which is set to start on -60 and time off 400. Again, that's to make sure that it's always on. We've got gravity, obviously to make our particles, our rockets and our particles after the explosions fall down towards the ground. And you can see we've got these tiddly little forces over here, and I've actually positioned them so I can see them clearly within the camera. If you go to the camera view, you can see they're actually quite easy to see. If I go to perspective, you can see they're actually quite tiny. I'll just zoom over there, and you can see we've got 2 different forces here. We've got wind small, and we've got a wind large. This is very common. I use this a lot. It's basically to make sure that you've got, a large wavy kind of turbulence effect going on. You can see this large one also has a small amount of wind force as well to blow the particles sideways. And then we have a small force, and this is a much more detailed effect on the particles, and has a much more sort of granular turbulence effect and makes them look a little bit more chaotic on a small scale. And the combination of the two together usually produces quite a nice organic, natural looking kind of firework effect. Snow, it was used in the snow effect, which we've just been through as well, and it'll be used many times as well in this DVD and other DVDs. As I said, it's a very common technique. I mean, I'm using 2 here. You could use 3 or 4. It's up to you how many different levels of turbulence you want to add together to give it a sort of the effect which is natural to you and what you expect from your scene. So just go back to camera view. Let's have a quick look at the particle flow now. Don't be scared by this. It's a lot larger than our last flow, and it branches a lot more than our last flow, but that's actually a little bit deceiving. It's relatively simple. So let's quickly run through this now and see what's going on here. So the first thing we have is obviously the source event, and you can see we've got that set to show 100% of particles. We have the upper limit set to being as high as possible. This is very important that you do this basically with most of your flows, because as I said in one of the other DVDs, it's really disconcerting when you have you expect 100,000 particles to be flying around on screen and you've only got 10,000. And that actually truncates your effect. What can happen sometimes, it'll reach the 10,000 particle limit, and it's not going to emit any more particles into the scene. And at that point, it's not going to do any more particles, and as a result, you kind of sit there thinking, well, my particle flow isn't working. Why isn't it working? And it is actually working. It's just this particle amount limit here, which is kicking in and making the effect not work, basically. So it's pretty irritating. Default limit for this value, actually. Something maybe we should try and get changed for a new version of Max. That might be quite good if they put it up to something a bit more realistic. So we've got 100% of our particles showing. They get birth from frame 0 to frame 200. We're birthing 30 particles. All we're birthing there is just the rockets. We're not birthing anything else. And I'm just using subframe sampling just to give it a little bit more detail in the time that it's actually emitted in. We position the particles on the icon using the volume, and as we saw earlier, that just puts them down there in, if I just go to perspective view, just move around a little bit, you can see it just puts the particles on this rectangle here, and you can see then they just fire outwards from there in different directions. Then we split the particles off, and this is the first branch that we do. Every second particle gets sent off in this direction here. So in other words, every 50% of our particles are basically being sent off over here to be car.